up ahead. Affirmative 612.
Time for another edition of the Pilot Money Guy with Scott Osborn and myself, Mark Killian, here to talk with you about investing, finance, and retirement. Of course, Scott is here to help his pilots and folks that are getting close to and into retirement. And as always, if you got some questions about anything we're covering, make sure that you reach out to a qualified professional like Scott and have a conversation for your very own. We'll have links in the show descriptions down below so you can check all that out and get some time onto his calendar and have that chat for yourself. My friend, this week, let's talk about pilot moves, planning moves for pilots turning 50. So I guess those first couple years, my friend, is obviously can be important stuff. How you doing?
Fantastic. How you doing, Mark?
I like the shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Like I told you earlier, I guess a large from Amazon is more like a medium. So, enjoy the view.
Depending on where it was made. Yeah, exactly. For sure.
I'm like, shoot, I guess I can't wash this one. My goodness.
Do not. Yes, you will definitely be in trouble there. All right. So look, if you're hitting into that, we're fully into summer here at the time we're doing this, right? And I make the comment all the time that, Memorial Day is the kickoff to summer. It's also kind of the kickoff to retirement, even though neither one are actually official, right? Memorial Day is not actually summer, but we treat it like it. And I think 50 plus 52 becomes the unofficial kickoff to let me get my butt in gear when it comes to getting ready for retirement. So what's some things to think about, especially if you're a pilot and you're in this window now?
So 50 to me, you're absolutely right. It's like you hit that point. A lot of guys are like, all right, my kids are in college. And that's where, when I look on the horizon, my planning horizon, the next major milestone is retirement. And for our folks, they're like, all right, I got 15 years left, right? I probably have been working for about, I'm like 2/3 of the way through. I've been working for about 30, got about 15 to go. And so, to me, I think age 50 it's a really, really good time to be taking a step back. And, again, we talk about order of operations a lot, like the last step in operations orders and planning is always consolidate and reorganize, and then you get ready for the next mission. And to me, this is a really good time to take a knee, consolidate, reorganize, and get ready for the next mission, which is really, how do we get ready for retirement?
Yeah. And we've got luckily, occasionally our government does some things that make a little bit of sense. And so when you turn 50, you get catch-up contributions, you get some things that can help you. To your point, your kids are probably off the payroll or real darn close to it. So this is the time you can really start to sock away a little bit.
Yeah. And in line with that, many times at 50, we're starting to see things like a lot of dominoes start to fall. Like I'm upgraded. I'm in the left seat. Many guys will have been there for a little bit already, but they're in the left seat. They're hitting certain income levels. They're getting to the bids and the routes that they really like. And so their income is starting to get to a really, really healthy level too. And so, it's also like, man, I got some extra cash flow for the first time in my life.
Right.
And this feels really good. What do I do with it? And so 50, I think, is a really good time to step back and just look at, all in all, like, what is my contribution strategy? So have we reviewed the 401k to make sure that I'm contributing the right way? Okay. And so even setting aside the 50 threshold, am I looking at what I'm doing in my base contribution, right? We have the airline contribution, and then we have the employer, then we have the employee contribution. Right. Many of our folks are getting enough of an automatic contribution from the airline that they really don't even need to do their contribution, their employee contribution. And again, their contribution is split up in two areas. They have their core contribution, and then they have their catch-up contribution. Catch-up contribution at 50 is $8,000 as of right now. You got a little window for folks in their 60s that it gets up to like $11,250, but the 50 threshold, hey, I can put an extra $8,000 a year in. Well, as of 2026, that has to go into the Roth. And so you want to make sure when you turn 50, or the year you're turning 50, you want to make sure that you log in and you look at where your contributions are going. You might want your contribution to be zero as far as your base 401k contribution, right? Because the airline's going to fill up their portion of it, and maybe I want to limit how much I'm sending to a spillover account, like a cash balance plan, if my airline has that. So I might want to limit that. But we want to make sure we're taking advantage of that $8,000 a year going to the Roth. And so again, if I just turned 50 and that's available on the 401k platform now, I want to run the numbers and put enough of a percentage in there that I'm going to hit that $8,000 going into the Roth. And then we want to make sure we get that account opened up and that we get the investment strategy for that.
Yeah, somebody might say, well, $8,000, that's not a whole lot, right? But I mean, it's like $8,000. I mean, you talk about if you did this from 50 to 65 even, right? When you stop flying, I mean, it's 15 years at $8,000. That ain't chump change either.
Yeah, it's going to add up. And again, it might feel small, but all these small things that we do compounded over time with good investment performance make a big difference.
Well, and it's $30,000 on the non, right? So like on the employee funded accounts, your normal 401k, I think it's up to 30. So again, you're not talking about chump change when you get into those Roth, those catch-up contributions.
For sure. And then when we look at the other aspect of that is we're going to get an increase in what we can put into our backdoor Roth as well. Or again, the IRA contribution is $7,500 as of 2026. When you hit 50, you get $1,100 of catch up. So it's $8,600 per spouse. Okay. Ideally, we've cleaned up any IRA balances and we're doing backdoor Roths now. And so now that's $8,000 in the catch up, $8,600 for me, $8,600 for my spouse. All of a sudden, we got a pretty good chunk of change going into that Roth bucket every single year.
For sure. And if you go back to what I said a minute ago too, Scott, like if the kids are completely off the payroll, which would be fantastic, you've got a lot of this discretional money now. So finding that extra money wouldn't be hard for most of our pilots out there that you're working with. But at the same time, you still have a lot of options to you. And I think a lot of pre-retirees kind of get to this phase and they're like, heck yeah, we can really cover some serious ground here.
Yeah. And again, if you think about, 25 plus K going in the Roth compounded every year for 15 years, that's a nice chunk of change. And again, it goes back to contribution strategy. We want to look at the whole thing, how much money you're making, kind of where you're at in your career progression, right, how much the airline specific to your airline is matching, and then run the numbers to say, again, maybe my core contribution is 0, and then I'm going to go a little bit heavier on the Roth to make sure I get that caught up this year. And then I got to make sure outside of the 401k, I'm doing those backdoor Roths, and then back to what we talked about in many episodes before, down that financial funding priority list into my taxable account, et cetera. So that's one key thing. When I turn 50, I want to make sure I get my Roth catch-up contribution dialed in, and I'm taking advantage of that. I want to make sure I'm increasing my backdoor Roths every single year. And again, that Roth bucket, after tax money in, grows tax-free, distributes tax-free, gets inherited to my spouse or my children tax-free as well. So we want to make sure we're taking advantage of that as best as we can.
Yeah, and then once you're, especially with the 65 mandatory as of at least right now, right, for, having to stop flying, then when you get to that point, you've been putting away, you've got these different buckets built, Scott. Now you're able to start looking at the retirement strategy as well and saying, okay, you're planning this ahead of time, but you're saying, are we, doing one spouse's Social Security turn on at 62? Are we waiting till, both of them till full retirement age? Are we moving to 70? Whatever that might be. But now you've got like all this extra money that you've pulled over the last, 15 years, and you really got that nest egg shored up.
Yeah. And again, we want to understand, this kind of segues into the next part of being 50. Okay. I got 15
Getting
years
old?
left
Is
to
that the
work.
next part or no? Okay.
No, getting experience.
Experience. Okay.
Getting experience. Now, when I have 50 years of experience and I got 15 years left to fly max, it's a good time to really get a good understanding of what is my retirement income plan look like? Because again, my retirement income plan, and to put that in, what I'll say like non-financial dork terms is like, how am I going to pay myself in retirement?
Right.
Okay. How am I paying specifically from what account at 65 in 1 month am I replacing my paycheck from? Is it coming from the 401k? Is it coming from a Roth? Is it coming from a brokerage account? Am I writing home equity checks to myself? I wouldn't recommend that, but there's many ways to pay your checking account. And we want to know, how are we going to do that?
Right. Sure.
And so when we start to figure that out, like we talked about funding priorities of order, we're also going to have a distribution priorities of order. We're going to distribute, let's say, our taxable account first. Taxable account, again, we're putting after-tax money in there. Capital gains are going to get taxed. Dividends are going to get taxed, but it's going to grow pretty tax efficient.
Yeah, and that's key. I mean, we often think about diversification of income, and we've talked about that before, but, that distribution and tax strategy diversification is equally important.
Absolutely. And again, just running some quick numbers. If you started doing the Roth catch up and backdoor Roths, you should have, for 15 years from 50 to 65, just getting S&P 500 average returns, you should have about 900 grand in your Roth bucket. If you did nothing until age 50 and then 50 to 65, you should have about that. Now, again, you're not going to spend that money right away. So if you can think long term, okay, think about 75-year-old you. 75-year-old you is going to have to take distributions out of that pre-tax 401k. Okay. Now, if I'm 50 and I'm funding $25,200 a year, let's say the limits never change, but I'm putting my $8,000 into the Roth catch up. I'm doing my 2 backdoor Roths for me and my spouse. I got 900 grand in the Roth when I retire. I stop contributing, but I'm not going to touch it for, let's say, maybe 10 more years at least. Well, if you let that go another 10 years at, let's say it's a little bit more conservative at 7%, that's $1.7 million. 75-year-old you is going to be like, I'm glad
that's
I did
not
that.
bad.
And those are the things that we want to do through the financial planning process. We want to identify the things that when we're 65, 75, 85, and then eventually gone, we look back and our family looks back and say, I'm glad my pilot did
and we're just talking about the basic stuff too. Don't forget, at least for a little while anyway, there's, depending on your age, there's the super catch up, right? This odd little thing that they've done for folks for that 3-year window. So, that's something else you could talk with your financial professional about as well to see if that makes a difference in your strategy.
For sure. So that's where I think, those, if you've ever read any business books, a common concept they talk about is starting with the end in mind, right? With any major initiative, any big project, you want to envision the outcome first, and then you reverse engineer the project from there. And so to me, that's a lot of what financial planning is. It's just long range project management. And so we want to start with the end in mind. What is 75-year-old me going to be really glad that I did? They're going to be glad that I diversified my assets from a tax standpoint and took advantage of these IRS codes that allow high earners that are typically very restricted in building tax-free wealth to set myself up to have $1 to $2 million of tax-free money later on in my retirement. And so it's not overly complicated. It's not overly hard to do. It's a couple account setup things. And again, most of our folks in this stage of their career have the cash flow for it. So let's make sure that we're deploying that cash flow in the right buckets where it's going to get the best tax efficient compounding for a long time. But again, if you just think, well, why even do the $8,000 a year between now and when I retire? It's going to be hardly worth anything. Yeah, but if you think about it, how retired you is going to look at your account balances. And again, getting my start working with high net worth retirees first to a household, they all said they wish they would have done this when they were younger. Well, hey, if you just turned 50, you're younger.
That's
you
right.
got a lot of time.
You got runway.
75-year-old you is going to think, man, 50-year-old me was young. And I wish I would have done X, Y, Z different.
Young and on the ball. So if you do it, right? So
yeah, I mean, and again, we want to do these things now where we have the time to compound it on our behalf. If you're trying to do it later, you're not going to be able to catch up because, again, the IRS is limiting what kind of catch up we can do. It's only $8,000 in the 401k and $8,600 in those backdoor Roths. So there's only so much you can do. If you start at 60 instead of 50, it's a significantly different dollar amount because you've lost out on the compounding effect of those assets.
Well, like with anything, right? It's all about having a strategy. It's all about maximizing things. We talk about it all the time. So if you need some help with that, reach out to Scott and have a conversation, especially if you're right there at the early stages. As we all know, if we're lucky enough, there's a little bit of luck, there's a little bit of genetics, there's a little bit of how you take care of yourself, but older us is waiting, down the line there, waiting on, us to do the right thing so that when we get to older us, we're not in a position we don't want to be in. So if you need some help getting all that strategy and that planning going, reach out to Scott at pilotmoneyguy.com. That's pilotmoneyguy.com. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, and of course, YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, thumbs up, notification bell, all that good stuff so you catch new ones when they come out. And Scott, thanks, man. Always appreciate it, brother.
All right, fly safe.
There you go. Fly safe. We'll see you next time here on Pilot Money Guy with Scott Osborn.
Hey everyone, real quick, if you haven't grabbed Scott's Financial Flight Control Toolkit yet, now is the time. This is packed with tons of helpful resources and tools like this, Scott's book, The Dichotomy of Wealth, which is a pilot's guide to maximizing wealth and cash flow in retirement. You also get access to some great guides like this one, Advice Matters, which breaks down 4 key ways a good financial advisor can help you boost your returns over time. And guides like this one on the pitfalls of emotions when it comes to investing, and this one on the HCM byline investment strategy, and more. So if you'd like your very own financial flight control toolkit, just click the link in today's show description, and Scott and the team will be happy to get one sent your way at absolutely no cost to you.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.